There was about 1,200 rebels. They included about 200 women and about 1,000 men. There were three primary units that took part in the 1916 Rising.
I suppose the most famous or the most important was the Irish Volunteers. They originally began as an organisation committed to achieving Home Rule. When the war broke out, John Redmond declared support for the British war effort, and a minority, the founders basically of the Irish Volunteers, broke with Redmond.
Those Irish volunteers who did not go to fight in the war remained in Ireland, and they became an even more radical group and came to be controlled to a large extent by the Irish Republican Brotherhood.
You also would have had then, kind of in parallel to them, Cumann na mBan, which was a force of women as an auxiliary force. They would do collections, they were doing first aid and stuff like that. You then also had another group, which was the Irish Citizen Army.
The Irish Citizen Army was founded in 1914 as a workers' militia to protect striking workers in the aftermath of the 1913 Dublin lockout.
The sort of people who got involved in these groups tended to be young. The Irish Party had been around for 40 years. It was dominated by old men. So if you wanted a career in politics, you wouldn't really get one in the Irish Party anytime soon. So it made up mainly young people, mainly men. It was upwardly mobile, skilled working class and lower middle class people dominated its ranks. There were some aristocrats like Countess Markievicz famously.
A lot of the women who were involved were coming from the more radical, kind of socially radical group of women who had been around for over 10 years really and been very active, from Inine Heron, Maud Gonne's organisation for nationalist women, and that's where you have people like Countess Markievicz coming in and people who would have been very involved in the lockout. There were a lot of them came to the nationalist movement through the suffrage movement. That real intersection of nationalism, socialism and feminism was very much kind of at the heart of Dublin life and kind of Irish cultural nationalism in certain strains.
Some of them talk about economic issues or political issues, but a recurring theme is that Ireland was losing its soul, it was losing its identity, it was being swamped by Anglo-American materialism basically. Most of them really wanted to replace British civil servants with Irish civil servants and decision makers, rather than thinking about, well, what sort of country we want, beyond wanting something that was Gaelic, whatever that meant, and implicitly Catholic. Most of them were Catholic.
While there were all these radical strains and kind of people who took part in the Rising, I think it's probably fair to say that a significant majority of those who went out would have been coming from a slightly more conservative kind of background of cultural nationalism.
It was a very, very unusual revolution in that sense. It was very traditional in many ways. In fact, it was a reassertion of traditionalism, I think, rather than embracing the modern.